Generations of the Boomer family of Durand, Illinois, answered the call to serve their nation in wartime. Edward Boomer was a teenager when he enlisted in the Union Army in 1863. Edward's son Stanley fought in World War I, and Sargent John Lynn Boomer, aged 22, made the ultimate sacrifice when Pandora's box, the B-17 bomber on which he served as a waist gunner, was shot down off the coast of France during World War II. Welcome to an audio version of an original article by Kathi Kresol, operator of Haunted Rockford Paranormal Events, Rockford, Illinois. This audio presentation is entitled The Boomer Family, A History of Military Service, and contains the 2018 story of the same name. The story originally appeared in the Rock River Times. This audio article is produced by Thomas Saunders for Haunted Rockford. Edward Boomer was only 13 years old when the Civil War started. He tried to convince his parents, John and Margaret, that he was old enough to go fight in the war, but they asked him to wait. Edward did as they asked until 1863, when he finally was able to convince them to let him enlist. Edward Boomer was hired as a mule team driver, but soon picked up a rifle to help defend his country. During the winter months of 1863 to 64, he was a guard stationed in Nashville. By the spring of 1864, Edward had fought in his first skirmishes. Though a boy when he joined, by January of 1865, Edward was a seasoned soldier. During that month, while fighting with the Wisconsin 13th Infantry, Edward was captured at Paint Rock, Alabama. He was escorted to the prison camp at Cahaba, Alabama. Luckily for Edward, it had the lowest mortality rate of all the Confederate prisons. It still contained disease, little food, and inadequate shelter. In fact, the old cotton warehouse had been converted to house 500 prisoners, but by the time Edward arrived at the camp, the prison population was around 3,000 men. Edward would spend the rest of the war in the horrible conditions at the prison. He was captured with 35 men from his regiment. Only 8 of the men survived their imprisonment. On his way back to Rockford, Edward was spared from death again when he was chosen to ride with other men on the steamship Henry Ames. It was traveling up the Mississippi River with another ship, the Sultana. The Sultana sank from a mysterious explosion, killing 1,950 soldiers on board. Edward always felt himself blessed for making it through the war when so many of his fellow soldiers did not. He slowly regained his health and returned to the family's farm business. In 1870, he met a beautiful young lady, Celinda Weatherhead, whose family lived in the nearby town of Harrison. They were married for 52 years when Celinda passed away April 1922, and Edward buried his beloved wife in the little North Burritt Cemetery. Edward suffered with a weak heart, and his health declined after Celinda's death, but he did not let that slow him down. In December, one of his favorite musicians came to Rockford, and Edward decided he would join his family to hear the Scottish singer Sir Harry Lauder at the Shrine Temple. His daughter and son-in-law attended the concert, as well as Edward's son, Jay. Edward was singing along with Sir Lauder and had just finished a lively tune when he closed his eyes and bent his head. His daughter thought he had tired himself out and needed a rest. But in reality, Edward passed away just as his favorite song came to an end. Edward's funeral was held at the Veterans Memorial Hall in Rockford, and he joined Celinda in the little cemetery near their home. Edward and Celinda passed on many things to their large family. Both were considered to be hardworking, very generous, and extremely proud of their community. They also were very patriotic and dedicated to their community. Their son, Stanley, would fight in World War I, and 4 of their grandchildren served in World War II. Dwight, born 1924, served in the Marine Corps. Wayne, born in 1922, and Myrna, born in 1914, served in the Army, and John Lynn, born 1919, served in the Army Air Corps. John Lynn, referred to as Lynn by his friends and family, was born in 1919 and had very few memories of his grandparents. He was one of 5 children born to Stanley and Bessie. At 21, Lynn was working as a truck driver and traveling all over the country for his job. No one who knew Lynn was surprised when the call went out for men to fight in World War II. and Lynn decided to enlist right away. He was assigned to the 324th Bombardment Squadron, 91st Bombardment Group, 8th Air Force, and was sent to Mississippi to train to be a waist gunner on a B-17. The 91st Bomb Group was made famous by the movie Memphis Belle. It suffered the greatest number of casualties of any bomber group that fought in the war. Stanley and Bessie were very proud of their son for doing his duty, but they also must have been very concerned when Lynn was sent to Europe. The 8th Air Force was based at RAF Bassingbourn and would fly an amazing 340 bombing missions during the war. In October 1942, the 324th Bomb Squadron was scheduled for a very important mission. The 10-plane formation was assigned to bomb the German U-boat base in Saint-Nazaire, France. Among these planes was serial number 41-24503, nicknamed Pandora's Box, the bomber on which Sargent Boomer served. The mission began well, but soon was under fire by German Focke-Wulf 190 aircraft. These single-engine aircraft were among the best fighter planes in the air during the war. They were also considered lethal by our forces. As Lynn's squadron struggled to reach their target, they took heavy fire from the German planes. The fighting grew more intense as they neared the targets. Lynn's plane was hit several times, and the pilot made the difficult decision to turn back toward the sea. 3 other planes made the same decision and flew in formation with Lynn's plane. Pandora's Box had sustained too much damage and soon lost an engine. The plane could no longer keep up with the formation, and the pilot signaled for the others to continue without them. The men in the other planes signaled back and continued on, knowing that they would never see Sargent Boomer or his crewmates again. Though no sign of Lynn's plane was ever found, it was theorized that the crew would have been forced down at sea around 30 miles northwest of Saint-Nazaire. None of the crew survived the crash. Stanley and Bessie received word of Lynn's death on November 28, 1942. The government told them that Sargent Lynn Boomer had been killed in action over France on October 23, 1942. Lynn Boomer was the first casualty of World War II to come from Durand, Illinois. Unfortunately, he would not be the last. The Boomer family is just one of the many families in our community who has answered the call to serve during wartime. It is also only one of many families to lose a loved one during battle. These men and women who were laid to rest in small cemeteries scattered all through our county must not be forgotten. They deserve our continuing gratitude and respect. This is the end of our audio article. Thanks for listening.